Well, Canada's next federal election is just 3 months from now, so expect plenty of campaign messages to come your way, including on your phone. And that is annoying some Canadians. So now Nova Scotia's Progressive Conservative Party is distancing itself from robo-texts that are being sent out by the federal Tories. CBC's Yvonne Colbert has that story.
The robo-texts in Nova Scotia come from Sarah and ask, can the Conservative Party count on your support in the next federal election? Many Nova Scotians have received the text in recent weeks. Some call it an invasion of privacy. The Director of Communications for the Federal Conservatives, Corey Hand, says the robo-texts are being sent to people across the country. Hand says it's one more way to find people who are open to the party and who may vote for it in the October federal election. But not everyone is happy with the robo-text. The Progressive Conservative Party of Nova Scotia has received complaints, prompting leader Tim Houston to post a mock text on his Facebook page saying he's not Sarah. Houston's post says he wants to assure people the Progressive Conservative Party of Nova Scotia is not behind these texts or calls. He adds his party will look at different approaches to contacting voters. Hand says it's up to each party to decide whether to use robo-texting, but the Conservative Party of Canada has chosen to use it because it's working well for them. He says they'll continue to use robo-texts in the next few months leading up to the federal election. Some, though, have questioned whether the Conservatives obtained the numbers legally. They did. Others wonder why robo-texting isn't prohibited by anti-spam legislation. In this case, it's legal because political parties are exempt. Anyone who wants to prevent further texts from any political party should respond by typing STOP. Yvonne Colbert, CBC News, Halifax.
For more on this story, I want to bring in Elise Mills now. She's a Conservative communicator and a senior associate with the Sussex Strategy Group and joins me now from Vancouver. So, Elise, this is certainly not a new way of reaching voters. What do you make of the Conservative Party using this type of communication?
Well, I think it's just one more step as we go, glacially into the 21st century. I mean, it goes hand in hand with a bunch of other tools and techniques that all political parties are using. And, I think that other political parties are going to have to be very careful, because if they're not going to do it in the 2019 campaign, they might be doing it in their provincial campaigns. We know they were doing it in their leadership campaigns, but definitely by the next federal election, it may not look exactly like this as it comes to you via text. It may be something different, but the methodology is going to be the same, and we're not backing away from technology. We're doing it to actually increase accuracy as best as we can.
Do you think it's a way that voters want to be reached, though? We've heard from some complaining that they think it's a breach of their privacy, though these are allowed under the law, as Yvonne was explaining. But what do you make of the sort of voter reaction so far?
Well, it's not a breach of their privacy. I understand why it feels that way. I mean, there's nobody more grumpy than me when I look at a text that's coming through, especially a lot of the phishing and spam that's come through lately. I think a lot of Canadians have seen that. This is not that. Where all political parties procure this from is from election software. And some of the numbers may not actually even have a name to it. We don't know who you are. We don't know your gender. We don't know where you live. We don't know. There's nothing assigned to those numbers. They're conjured through a piece of computer software. And so you have two options. You can actually just hit or reply stop or no, depending on whether you're choosing to vote Conservative or not. Or you can actually go to your blocking mechanism on your phone and just simply select it that it's political, and it blocks it, and it lets the carrier know that it's not spam, that it is political, much like many of your other options on your text.
Who do you think they're trying to specifically target with this? Is this the young people who we are so often characterized as living a large portion of our lives on our phones?
Yeah. I think even the baby boomers. I mean, nobody seems to have a home phone anymore, and we did a lot of that. We ended up getting rid of it ourselves because we were getting these calls for, do we want our carpets clean, things like that. And it was always at dinner time, and so everybody's eventually evolved. I mean, my mother is 70 years old, and she hasn't had a landline in 5-6 years. I mean, she's got her iPad with with her all the time. She's probably far more teched up than I am. And I think it's not just the young ones. I think with the millennials and actually Gen Z, which would be my mother or my daughter's generation, we're going to actually have to get a little bit more creative and innovative than just a text to be able to reach them. But you know, with baby boomers, Gen X, my age group, the best way to do this is through text. We know that emails are not always that great unless you are signed to receive Liberal or Conservative or NDP newsletters from us or communiques. Texts are a great way to identify whether we're you know what the support on the ground is. It's very similar to a virtual door knocking, which by the way is not obsolete. We hit 2 million doors so far. You know, we're looking forward to closing in on another target before the next election, which is coming up very closely. But it's like I said, it goes in partnership. And whatever people are saying about being concerned about their privacy, I think those are just people making a big deal out of nothing on Twitter, having something to complain about, because there's no way that it's going to breach your privacy.
Well, you brought up door knocking. So do you know how this compares in terms of success to practices like that, randomly knocking on doors?
That's something we would have to talk to my colleague Corey Hahn about, because they're the ones that are going to be crunching those numbers. I think it's way too early to tell. Those texts have just started to show up. And, you know, for the Nova Scotia Progressive Conservative leader, I think it was very tongue-in-cheek and smarty pants of him to do that. But I would like to ask him and his team for the next election, as they approach it in order to cinch a win, what technology are they going to apply and what different applications there, because, you know, you have such a diverse population now. How are we, and I mean diverse in the way that we're communicating with each other, how are they going to reach them? So, you know, I think the Conservative Party would be happy to talk about those numbers when we actually have them, because it's in such the early stages. But the Conservative Party's been door knocking, just literally the face-to-face, real-time conversation with voters, you know, well before this last year, and that has been exceedingly successful for us. But, you know, we have to think of a way to incorporate these technologies. I mean, we are a country that was talking about electronic voting in 2015, so the text thing it seems like an obvious to me.
And with the federal election almost around the corner now, do you think that this is something that we are going to see more of? We should be prepared to get more alerts on our phone?
Yeah, I mean, if you're grumpy like my family, be prepared to be grumpier, but use your technology. If you want to stop it, there's many ways. Again, I just want to reassure Canadians, nobody knows who you are, where you live. It's simply a form of IDing or trying to create a conversation. It's not trying to hold you accountable to something you're not interested in necessarily, where nobody's selling you anything. But yeah, I think all parties have mechanisms in their trade. I would not at all be surprised. In fact, I'm expecting the Liberals to have something or many different variations of something like this go out. And I think this is the first attempt by the Conservatives. I don't think there'll be other forms of software and technology that we use to be able to attract people to get them to vote. I mean, if anything, this is beginning the conversation of, so we've contacted you. You may not support the Conservative Party, but are you actually going to vote? Because we need to increase voter population from municipal elections to provincial elections to federal elections, and I think that's something we're all in agreement with.
Okay, well, thanks so much for making the time to speak with us today.
Thank you so much.
That was Elise Mills, Senior Associate with the Sussex Strategy Group, joining me from Vancouver.